Pro Farmer is talking about tip back all across the Midwest. Are you seeing it in your area? We'll pop up a picture of what we're seeing here locally. Hi, I'm Bill Sweet with Yield-Tech Seed Service. We're here today with another episode of High Yield Answers. And today we're going to talk about a puzzle. And it's how does a puzzle relate to an ear? Well, I think there's multiple pieces that's going to make some sense of maybe why we're seeing tip back in some of our fields. Now, the Pro Farmer's been talking about tip back ever since they've been doing that tour. And it's like, is it really affecting Northeast Indiana and West Central Ohio? And we kind of held back our opinion. We've been in a lot of fields looking for disease pressure, trying to protect the crop from that. But actually, we've just been going through the fields, looking at things, and we haven't really been paying as much attention to the ear because it was just a little early. But I got a call on Friday from one of my customers from Bern, Indiana, and he was seeing a lot of tip back in one of his fields. Not all of his fields and not every acre, but it really got my attention. So I went out and spent some time in the field that evening. I spent some time in the field on Saturday again, just trying to look at specific reasons of why maybe that happened. So I went ahead and called our technical agronomist, Jeff Heinen and Dalton Turner, and they also gave me some feedback because they're seeing it across their whole area. They're seeing across all different hybrids. And so that's what I want to talk about today. What is possibly causing that? Because it's one thing to have these problems and try to figure out, did we do something that we could have prevented it? And I don't really know that you could have. So some of the things that stuck out to me as I went back and looked at some data, you know, we had several nights that we got well below 60 degrees. We got sometimes down in that low 50s, 53 degrees, you know, in the month of July, which if you remember, early July had a lot of hot temperatures. Then we got into late July, we ended up having like cooler temperatures. And you would say, well, that would be a good thing for nighttime respiration. And it is. However, when it gets down that cool, the plant really starts to shut down its metabolism, really starts shutting down, you know, the sunlight that it's harvesting, you know, each and every day. So fast forward to August, and we know that August has been a month like we've never seen before, especially in our area as far as rain. And we know that there are some, and our heart aches for those that have been suffering from way too much rain. So we've accumulated about 14 inches of rain since July 1st. That's a lot for us. Typically, if you look back since 2010, we'd probably average somewhere between 5.5 to 7 at the very most. That's kind of where we would typically come in at. And so when you take into account some cooler nights, you take in some heavy rainfall. Now, there are several years like 2015 and in 2018 where we had above average rainfall. But if you look back on when they came spread out. This year, we just kind of get them stacked on top of one after another. And that's really what we think has caused a significant amount of our tip back in our area is the cooler nights, and then also followed by just the plant not wanting to take up nutrients in order to continue to grain fill those newly developing kernels. And so when you think about tip back, it always typically starts from the tip back. That's why we call it tip back. However, this year, we're seeing it on the underside of the ear, which is kind of interesting. And I'm not exactly sure why that's all happening. And we've got that picture that we showed up before that we've got multiple ears like that out in the field. One of the things I want to pay attention, how do we get better? How do we take this situation on something that we really can't control? But I think it's going to be interesting to see how different planting populations, so when I looked at different lower planting populations, we seem to fare better than maybe sometimes the higher populations. Did you guys spread any hog manure or dragline any manure or do 2 applications of nitrogen? Or maybe you did some foliar feeding. Those are the details that we'd love to hear back from you as we think about getting high yield answers. And it's not about, oh, we got to do this every year, but if we can learn from this, it may help us to understand what is a good ROI for years to come. Thanks for tuning in.